The Jungle Car is a location we haven't yet seen in the show, but this train car did appear in the promotional poster for Book 1 of Infinity Train. This might just be my personal favorite train car so far, simply because I think rainforests are inherently aesthetically awesome, and the color scheme utilized for this one added extra mystical flair due to the gorgeous hues of pink, purple, and aquamarine. For additional visual fun, all the objects from this train car glow when pressure is applied to them. There's also lizards! I fucking love lizards! Besides introducing us to Hazel and Tuba, The Jungle Car is an episode that further fleshes out the personalities of the two child cult leaders and highlights the differences in their skill sets and attitudes. Simon acts in a calculated manner and tries to carry himself with a cold demeanor, but it comes off as high-strung more than anything. Simon wants to feel in control of the situation and account for any variables and potential problems that could occur. The desire for control may stem from abandonment issues that we learn about later in episode 4 of this season. Simon also has a military-styled outlook and persona in how he approaches the concept of traversing through the train. Grace even makes fun of this and tells him to take it easy.
You can play super serious general guy when we get back. Until then, loosen up!
As we saw briefly in the mall car during Book 2, as well as in the previous episode, The Musical Car, Simon's primary hobby is creating miniatures to reenact battles. We see him making army guys, but there's also a diorama with medieval elements, and the wide variety of boxes suggest he's interested in combat across a wide variety of civilizations and time periods. He may also be mixing and matching these pieces when recreating battles from the fantasy books he writes, which also revolve around military battles.
I need a big light to emulate dawn before the Battle of Esmeralda.
Is that a real battle?
It is in my fantasy novel.
I wonder if this is an interest Simon picked up after boarding the train, perhaps motivated by the desire to no longer feel weak, or whether this already appealed to him before he boarded the Infinity Train as a child. We know Simon's mother was the sort of person that dressed him in socks and sandals.
I was 10. My mom thought they were practical.
But maybe his father had a military background, and Simon took a bit after him? This is just pure speculation, though. There's not really any tangible evidence to work with. Wherever this military appeal stems from, it certainly colors the way Simon perceives his place in the train, and the outer persona Simon attempts to project.
Threats seem minimal.
But Simon's presence remains aloof and dorky.
I was a little surprised at the lack of coordination Simon exhibited during this episode, considering how agile he was in a train car where he also had to account for altered gravity. I'll chalk that one up to Simon having somewhat of a crush on Grace, and being flustered at the two of them spending extended time alone together. Grace, in contrast to Simon, has a more free-spirited, laid-back, go-with-the-flow personality, where feeling unprepared and out of her element doesn't cause her that much concern. She treats their current predicament like a vacation away from her regular day-to-day responsibilities as leader of the Apex.
See? Isn't this a nice change of pace?
Yeah, it is.
Speaking of their roles as leaders, Grace seems to offset much of the scouting and battle training regimen duties to Simon, because she doesn't recall off the top of her head the Apex protocols that Simon wrote up.
We do have Apex procedures for something like this.
Okay, what do you got?
This suggests that such matters don't generally interest her, and she wings it when she's engaged in raids, whereas Simon likely tries to educate the younger recruits on what he considers to be proper train venturing methodology. Grace, meanwhile, maintains the sense of unity to her cult and spearheads the emotional manipulation and, well, let's put it bluntly, the brainwashing. When Simon and Grace meet Hazel and Tuba, Simon looks at Grace for approval before beginning a recruitment speech for the Apex. He knows Grace is better at this task than him, so he makes sure he wouldn't be interfering with anything she might have had in mind before taking the lead. Simon can be pretty slick when he's following Grace's lead in situations where he feels comfortable, but we see that his solo attempts at conversing with potential recruits leave something to be desired. It's pretty obvious why Grace was the one to go off with Jesse, and not Jesse go off with Simon.
I was hoping to take some scouts to give it a look.
You know, it's been a while since I've checked out a freshly made car. I'll take this one.
Simon loses his composure easily when things don't immediately proceed how he wants them to, and the manner of hostility he displays is obviously not conductive toward recruitment.
You aren't getting this. You see...
When Grace apologizes on Simon's behalf,
Sorry.
that sorry almost felt like it was secretly targeted at Simon, like as if Grace is apologizing to Simon that his attempt once again failed, and that she'd have to take the reins as usual. Grace understands how to talk and how to appeal to children, and she's capable of adjusting her conduct to match the age of her target. How she interacts with Hazel is worlds apart from how she tried to curry the favor of Jesse. When Grace first met Jesse, she acted cool, hip, and detached to pique his interest.
I really don't care one way or the other, but you were trying to win the door, so ta-da! Door.
With Hazel, Grace acts extra sweet. She puts on an inviting and comforting persona to make Hazel feel like she's her friend.
She's kinda shy.
I can get shy too.
Simon hadn't even so much as bothered to dumb down his language for Hazel. Simon also fails to keep as cool as Grace's backup when it comes to the subject of letting a powerful Null tag along with him.
Tuba can't come with.
What?
You can't...
What he's trying...
Hazel's response to being told that Tuba has no reason to go with him was hilarious.
Don't be daft!
It amused me how Hazel knows what the word daft means, enough to use it in a reactionary manner with such conviction, but isn't familiar with the word conductor.
What's a conductor?
I feel that most viewers probably had the idea that Hazel might be a null the moment the number tracker failed to show her presence.
I thought you said there weren't any passengers for at least 47 cars.
I don't know. That's what the number tracker said.
And I doubt many people were sold on the idea that her number was merely deactivated.
That's probably why she didn't scan. The fake conductor was trying to hide her from us, turning off her number.
I know Simon's rationalization didn't convince me one iota, that's for sure. By the way, I forgot to talk about this number tracker that's capable of scanning train cars in my review of the last episode, so I guess I'll do it now. It seems like an incredibly useful piece of technology that I sorta doubt passengers are supposed to get their hands on. Something real interesting is that the shuttlecraft used by the cat has design patterns awfully reminiscent of the ones we see on this radar. Maybe the shuttlecraft was used by 1-1 before they created the Steward as a new vehicle for getting around the train. I don't think 1-1 would use a radar scanner like this though, which seems molded for human hands, so maybe Amelia created this gadget by basing it after technology already existing on the train. And if that is the case, then it figures maybe the cat got it from Amelia, and then maybe Simon got it from the cat. But enough with that tangent, and let's get back to Hazel. Hazel's supposed identity as a passenger of the train continues to be even more suspect when she says things like this.
Wait, am I a kid?
Mm-hmm.
For me, the most befuddling comment Hazel made in this episode was,
Are you sure this is what you want? We were setting up a home here.
It's the moment I've dreamed of my whole life.
That was a rather ominous statement, especially considering that this headstrong girl is potentially afflicted with amnesia. I was pretty fond of the mystery behind Hazel, because the twist that she's probably not a passenger seems very obvious, but that isn't the interesting part. The interesting part is then what is her story beyond that. Oh, and Tuba?
Hello.
Tuba is great, by the way. The deep love and care Tuba has for Hazel was apparent from the very start, and their bond comes across to the audience so strongly. And how can you not adore Tuba's dry, stoic, and menacing personality?
Eating a pineapple.
So the jungle car ends with the two child cult leaders accepting a compromise and allowing a physically powerful denizen acting as a parental figure to their pursued target to join the party.
We'll take them both for now. Once we wean Hazel off it, we'll ditch the null before we get back home.
This compromise is what will keep Grace and Simon from being able to follow through with their usual brainwashing methods as they navigate the rest of the train together. Having an intimidating presence that forces Grace and Simon to put a filter over what they're able to say dampens their attempts to facilitate thought reform. And I'll discuss what happens as a result in my reviews of the following episodes. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next review.